one of the biggest challenges I've had with other marketing teams is when marketing is celebrating something that doesn't feel like a celebration or a victory to sales. Just imagine that disconnect. If marketing has these made up KPIs like MQLs that nobody in sales understands, and they're celebrating crushing their quota, but salespeople are starving on the vine with no sales qualified opportunities, that's a disconnect. And those are the people that probably want to replace each other.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Oh yes, we've started. We've hit the button. The train is leaving the station. The roller coaster is about to go click, click, click. And this introduction should hopefully get the nerves going. Who are we going to talk to today? Well, he is a blast from the past. He is what I was calling earlier a pillar in the community. And he is just constantly out there. And it's the name. He's got 3 letters. He's been on the show. And well, let me just tell you about him. Right? Okay. Well, let's talk about him. Who is he? He's the ultimate marketing leader and thought leader turned evangelist. He was on episode 106 back in 2019. If you want to go back and check out the backstory and the life story, ultimate marketing leader turned evangelist. And he's also many things: an author, a speaker, a mentor, angel investor, board member, advisor. Holy crap. He's got books already out there. And guess what? One is coming out today. When you hear this episode, you can immediately clickety click with that finger that I know is feeling like a call to action. And the book is out today. It's called Courageous Marketing. It has been cited by all of the most famous people in marketing as the thing you must read. And he's here to talk to us today and school us up. Previously the CMO and now the chief evangelist at Gong, Udi Ledergor, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much, Casey. Thank you so much. After that intro, I'm bound to disappoint.
All downhill from here, right?
100%.
Time to get out the magic coloring book. We got to give people some tricks or something. I don't know. We got to entertain. But dude, welcome back. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. It's been a minute.
A couple minutes, right? We could multiply that out, 3,700, like times 6 or 7. But you know what? Let me pass you this thing. It's heavy. Okay, we didn't have this back in 2019. Okay,
Ooh,
you
okay,
go.
I got
Go
it.
ahead and take Thor's hammer. I'm gonna grab
I'm
that.
feeling like Thor now.
Okay. Take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, a bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Oh gosh, where do I begin? I think one I would choose is that B2B marketing has to be boring. And looking at most B2B marketing plans and websites and content, you kind of think that it's an axiom at this point that B2B market, at least one of those B's, has got to stand for boring, right? Otherwise, I just can't explain all this AI generated content that we're reading, and more companies are doing there.
That's what the B. See, now I needed you to teach me what that B stood for. Clearly, it's boring.
It's a tightly held secret, but yes, some companies, both B's stand for boring. And I'm here to tell you it's not true, man. It's just not true. I've spoken with dozens of CMOs, and the best ones have figured out that neither of those B's need to stand for boring. And for companies to seem authoritative and become a thought leader in their space, they can actually shed off that stale, stuffy, slimy look that so many companies have today and actually be approachable and personable and speak like a human being. And guess what? Turns out human beings respond to that. Who'd have thunk?
Who'd have thought? Damn. Shed the like, why do we get caught up in this? I don't know if anyone actually believes we should be boring, but why do we find ourselves in this cloud of boring?
You're right, Casey. You're right. Nobody wants to be there. Everyone says, yeah, I want to be different. But
yeah,
people are afraid to be different. People want things that they're too afraid to go and achieve. And there's a few reasons this happens. Let me give you 2 that I've found maybe are most common. Why so much marketing ends up stale and boring. So number 1 is simply people choose risk averseness or playing it safe as their strategy because nobody wants to get fired. And if you do something that's agreeable and unoffensive and nobody's going to find anything wrong with it, you're probably not going to get fired. But here's the problem. When you do something that's so agreeable, everybody likes it, nobody's offended by it, nobody's getting excited about it either. And that's the problem. It comes together. Marketers are afraid of people hating what they're doing. That should not be your biggest fear. You know what the biggest fear should be? The people ignore what you're doing. That is the worst case scenario for a marketer or for anything, if you ask me. So the opposite of love is not hate, it's being indifferent. It's indifference. And that's what we need to stay away from. So instead of thinking, oh, what can I create that nobody's going to hate? Change that mindset to what can I create that nobody can be indifferent to? I am fine with some people hating what I'm doing. Hopefully not all of them, but I'm fine with some people hating what I'm doing as long as enough of the relevant people are excited about what I'm doing. And you can't do that by just being agreeable.
Totally. Totally. You know, it reminds me of like even Super Bowl commercials, right? Even the ones you hate, you remember. I don't know, it was like Oatly or something. The guy was in the middle of a field playing a piano. I'm like, this ad sucks. But here I am talking about it two years later. Like, I hate this guy. I hate his product. I hate him in the field. But here I'm talking about it. You know, and that might be the hate. But guess what? That's not indifference. Indifference, I couldn't tell you an indifferent. I don't even remember them at all.
100%. And most startups really should be focusing on how do they grab attention and keep that attention. You don't do it by playing to the same old boring best practices, which should really be called boring practices, because by the time anything makes it to the best practice status, it just means everyone's doing it. So if you take ordinary action, you will get ordinary results. If you learn about the best practices, take the ones that work for you, but then ignore the rest and make up your own, you are more likely to get extraordinary results.
Man. So part one is they play it safe. What was part two? Like why are we in the cloud of boring?
So part one is playing it safe. There's a specific flavor of that happens. And I know we touched on this in our prep call. So if I forget some of the points that you found interesting, feel free to remind me of them. But there's one specific flavor that I call death by committee. And we see this happen all the time. There's a famous saying, I looked in all the parks and fountains and couldn't find any monuments erected for committees. And there's a good reason for that. There's a good reason about it. Think about that. You usually see one woman or one man, sometimes on a horse, but never a committee. Why? Why are there no monuments to committees? Maybe because they haven't done anything incredible. And the reason is that when you sit in a committee, by default, you're going to appeal to the lowest common denominator, something everyone can agree on again. And it's another flavor of playing it safe because you're trying to appease the CFO and the CEO and the head of sales and maybe the guy from customer marketing who has a niece who's a designer and has an opinion on what you're trying to launch. And then you end up with this mishmash that's, again, not going to offend anyone, but probably not going to excite anyone. So some of the best decisions are made in a very, very small forum, as small as a single person who has the psychological safety to make that decision, knowing that they probably won't get fired, even if it doesn't work out exactly as they had planned. When we, I could give you examples from we launched Gong's brand and Gong's Super Bowl commercial. It was a very, very small team who worked on all these things. And I intentionally kept it a very small team because by expanding the internal audience, I would be creating the illusion that I'm going to take these people's feedback and incorporate them in the final result. And I had no intention of doing that.
Right. That's the problem, right? Hey, great idea, great idea, great idea. Let's make a monster that has all of our great ideas combined. No. All of your ideas, thanks for contributing. They're terrible. We're going to go with this one over here.
And even if they're not terrible, I just, it baffles me. Someone told me this years ago, marketing has a problem because we don't use a cryptic coding language like C++ or Java. Like, I don't know many marketers without a technical background who would go to their VP of engineering and say, oh, I don't think you wrote that algorithm the way I would. Here's some advice on how you should write that algorithm. You don't see that happen very often, but everyone has an opinion about marketing. The problem is we use plain English. That is our biggest fault. We use plain English, and so everyone's in on our secret language, Casey. We can't hide what we're doing.
Dang.
And because we speak a language that's very common to our coworkers, they automatically think that they understand marketing and that their opinion matters as much as ours does. They think it's like a he said, she said, or we get equal votes. Well, we don't. We don't. Marketing is a profession, and people have been doing this for many years. They have better measurement tools. They have better intuition. They have better experience about what's going to work and what's not to. And I'm sure the VP engineering respects my opinion about their algorithm as much as I respect his opinion on my marketing campaigns, but we should probably each stick to our lanes for the most part.
Yeah. So I'm really picking up this trend of like this cloud is really there's a lot of fear, right? We're afraid. We're afraid of offending, or we're afraid of getting fired for playing it safe, and we're probably going to get fired for not playing it safe. Like we're like running around as marketers, and we're afraid of everything, and everyone's giving their feedback, and yeah, that's not fun at all.
No, it's not fun at all. It's not fun at all. And I think if you take it 2 steps back,
Sure.
it starts by picking the right company and the right CEO, where as a marketer, you have a chance of succeeding. And there are telltale signs that you can look for. Is this a company that's going to give you the freedom and the resources and the patience that you need to actually try some risky things and make bold statements and take a different line from what everyone's doing? Because if you don't, you might have a job for 18 months. I think that was the last average tenure I heard for marketers or
Is that it?
marketing leaders.
Jeez.
It's crazy, right? You'll get
Yes.
that 18 months because they're waiting for the results to show up. They're not finding anything you're doing offensive, but the results are probably not happening. And we can talk about why that happens. Sometimes not at all your fault, but then you're going to move on because you didn't feel that you could do anything risky because you thought you would lose your job because of doing something risky. But because you didn't, the results failed to come and now you're losing your job anyway. So might as well fail quickly if you're going to try something risky. If it doesn't work in the first 6 months, you'll want to know and either move on from the company or try something different. But my point to end this little segment is that playing it safe is the riskiest strategy of all.
I'd much rather go down in a blaze of glory.
Yes.
That was the worst email I've ever seen, and it was awesome. You know what? Even the idea of like, I've heard someone say that they purposefully sent an email out where dropped the first name part of the email. They purposely did it wrong, so they would only say first name. So people would see it and go, "Oh, you screwed that up," and they got people's attention. And I'm not saying this is a best or boring practice. I'm just saying like, at least they're trying something different.
We had a similar mistake. I wish I could take credit and say it was intentional. A couple of years ago, we sent out a pretty broad audience email, and someone in marketing automation had snuck in, erroneously, of course, a letter F before the first name field. And it came out to like F Casey and F Udi and F John, and people were imagining what that F stood for. And I can tell you that email got a hell of a great response rate.
Wow.
Fortunately, this is a true story. You can't make up this shit. Fortunately, they understood when we quickly sent out the follow-up email, humorously acknowledging our mistake and wishing well to all our subscribers. There was no malice intent behind that F before your first name, but it was a funny error, and it did get a big response rate.
You know what? And you got engagement. Hey, what's up?
Yes.
Man. So how do we shift to like is the way we're supposed? And I know this ties into your book too. I'd love to talk about that. And
Yep.
how do we where do we go from here? How do we shift into getting out of this fear mindset?
So one way of doing it is every time we're faced with a task, whether it's coming up with a visual identity or a advertising campaign or a content piece or just an event concept, thinking first about the strategy. What is the big idea? Why are people going to line up to my booth? Why are people going to give me their email to download this piece of content? Why are going to people stop scrolling in their endless social feed and stop on my content or my ad? You've got to stop and think about that instead of just rushing into the tactics and following those best practices. Once you start understanding the motivation, the consumer desires and behaviors and wants and needs, and what are their challenges that you can help them solve, then you actually have a chance of getting them to stop scrolling, enter your booth, give you your email, and do all that stuff. I always go back to Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, the the 6 pillars of human persuasion. And there's so many timeless lessons in there. The first one, if you remember just one, it's the first one, which is reciprocity, which is give before you take or give before you ask. And by doing that, for example, with a really valuable content strategy where you provide value irrespective of your product. So it's got to be independent from selling your product, which here's a pro tip. I always separate my content team from my product marketing team. Those are never the same person or the same team. We can talk about that if you want, but I'll just finish this thought. By doing that, the content team can focus on KPIs of getting people's attention and providing them with value, which is independent from pitching our product, because product marketers are always going to focus on the product, which is their job. All right. And so by having that idea and just putting aside all the trivial content that is out there and all the AI generated content, we can talk about what AI is good for and what it's not yet good for. It's not good for original content that's going to get anyone excited. I can give you that tip right now.
It's not lighting people up. It's not. Well, it's just, let's talk about it, right? What is it good for? I feel like, isn't that there's a song like, what is it good for, right? And like it's like, hey,
it is good for an increasing number of things. So here's a couple of things that I've used it for recently. Let me start with a micro and then getting a little bit bigger. So micro, yeah, you mentioned that my book, Courageous Marketing, is out. So April 10th, the book is available everywhere books are sold. Go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy your books, and thank you in advance.
Do we have Audible? Are we doing Audible?
We will in a few months. I am working on it. I wanted to just stagger it a little bit. So the book is out now in digital copy. If you're using Kindle or any other digital reader, it's out on paperback. It's out on hardcover. Audiobook is on its way. We're a couple of months away from that.
Love it.
So as I was writing the book, which I can promise you every single word I wrote by hand, no AI involved, as I was reading it aloud for the umpteenth time, I noticed that there was one figure of speech that was used twice in 2 adjacent chapters. And you can't, it doesn't jump out of you. It doesn't jump out at you when you read it. But as I was listening to it, there was, I think, an expression like a sea of sameness that I noticed appeared both in the foreword and then in the introduction. I'm like, I can't have that because it's a kind of a unique figure of speech. I don't want that appearing. It was separate chapters, not even on the same page or chapter, but I didn't want that. So I started racking my brain and I thought, wait, I can ask ChatGPT, like, give me 10 alternatives with similar meanings to sea of sameness. It gave me 10 alternatives. I did not like any of them, but they triggered an alternative that I ended up choosing that was similar to one of the ChatGPT recommendations, but that was just a great shortcut. Instead of me staring into the abyss, figuring what's going to be a good one, ChatGPT triggered my mind and gave me 10 other options that I looked at. Here's another one for you. As I was working on the press release for my book launch, I've done hundreds of press releases in my career. I've never done a book launch press release. So I asked my PR guy, do you have a good template for a book launch press release? And he said, what do you mean template? We use ChatGPT prompts. And he sent me a very detailed prompt that he uses to kind of fill in the blanks and the formatting of a press release. And so I used that. I looked at it. It was half decent. So I actually used that as a starting point to quickly edit my press release. I would say it probably saved me 60 to 70% of the time it would have taken me to start from a blank piece of paper. But I hated all the title options that ChatGPT gave me for that press release. I ended up making my own. And I almost didn't use anything verbatim, but it was really, really helpful for all the templated things. So the format, like you should have this section and this section. Here's where you put the date and the city, and here's where you put about the author. That stuff that is just manual, repetitive work, that stuff AI does exceptionally well. And so I would say if I'm trying to generalize that, us marketers sometimes write a big piece of content, and now we need to break it up into, let's take this 2,000 word blog post, break it up into 4 social posts, and also resize the images for different formats and different social networks and different ad networks. That AI is perfect at because it's templated, repetitive work. If you want a shorter version, a longer version, a more casual version, a more formal version, it'll do that beautifully for you. But I wouldn't ask it to come up with an original piece of content because it can't yet. Because all it's doing, it's looking what other people have written and suggesting some combination of that. I don't want to write about what people have already written about. I want to create something new.
It like creates vanilla by default, right? It's creating everyone's average. by default, uh,
Absolutely.
which is not as tasty nearly as you making your own Takis, you know? Like, let's get some spice back in here, none of this vanilla ice cream. Though a
Exactly.
shout out to a good French vanilla. Um, so so I wanna transition here because I know with AI, it also brings up the topic of people, right? If not AI, then the humans involved. And I know you put a quite a bit of thought into the people that go into marketing teams and that softer side of what you think about when you're hiring. We have a lot of CMOs, a lot of VPs of marketing listening. What did you explore in your book, Courageous Marketing, now on Amazon? What did you explore around that softer side?
Yeah. So when I started putting down a skeleton for my book and filling out content, the first 2/3 were very fast to brain dump. It was chapters about brand and content marketing and events and category building and all this great stuff that's both strategic and tactical that I knew people asked me a lot. But then I had a lot of stuff in my brain that I almost never get asked about. And I thought this could be really, really helpful for people planning their careers, building their teams. And then the last third of the book became this softer human side of marketing, where I've got a couple of chapters about building your own career, how to choose the right company, how to choose the right CEO, how to create the role of your dreams if it doesn't already exist, which I've done multiple times in my career. And then the final two chapters talk about how to build the dream courageous team and how to align with your most important counterpart in any company, which is sales. How do you make them feel that marketing is making sales easier so that they're going to ask for more marketing budget, which is always going to be more effective than you going to do it?
Why do you suppose this gets overlooked? Why do you suppose most people with lesser podcasts, clearly, but also just in interviews, why are they not asking about this side? Why is it always the tactics, the strategies, that first 2/3?
I can only guess, but here's my guess. I think some people think that there are templates and work and cheat sheets and frameworks for things like advertising and television campaigns and even doing events. And of course, there are cheat sheets and again going back to those best practices, which will provide ordinary results if you do them. And I think there's more subjectivity than some people realize into how to get the really brilliant ideas and brilliant execution to really, really make those click. But when it comes to the human side of how to build a team and how to motivate them and how to align with sales, I think most people put that down as, well, that's kind of a very personal, subjective thing. And, the two people just need to get along and understand each other and it'll be fine. But it rarely happens. It rarely happens. Just the other day, I saw a study published. It's called the State of Sales and Marketing Alignment from Mutiny, a company I invested in and advise occasionally. And they found a shocking statistic. I don't know if you saw this on social media.
Yeah.
They said that when they anonymously asked sales and marketing leaders, 83% of them said that they would like to replace their counterpart with someone easier to work with. And that is shocking. That is shocking. Isn't that?
Yeah, that's almost everybody. So there's like a few unicorns that are like, "I love them," but everyone else is like, "Nope."
Yep. And it's the same number of people almost that found that said that they believe in the value of that partnership, but it's just not working for them. Well, if everybody
Yeah.
wants it, but it's not working, then clearly most of us are doing this wrong. And so I sat down with my longtime CRO, Ryan Longfield, who I had the pleasure of working with for 5 years at Gong, during my CMO years, and we basically co-wrote this chapter. And I think of it, and I describe it in the book, is the title of the chapter on sales marketing alignment is "You're half of a two-headed dragon." And if that's the one thing you remember, then I'll be happy because that's how you have to think. And here's a practical example of that. I love this quote from Ryan. He said, one of the biggest challenges I've had with other marketing teams is when marketing is celebrating something that doesn't feel like a celebration or a victory to sales. Just imagine that disconnect. If marketing has these made up KPIs like MQLs that nobody in sales understands, and they're celebrating crushing their quota, but salespeople are starving on the vine with no sales qualified opportunities, that's a disconnect. And those are the people that probably want to replace each other.
Yeah.
But if we all agreed on what are the key metrics that we all understand and agree on, then a victory to marketing would feel like a victory to sales. And that's just the beginning of understanding what real sales and marketing alignment looks like.
Yeah. And hitting the gong, metaphorically or literally, because I definitely have one in my office. Yeah. Hitting that thing, everyone's celebrating, not just it's a sales thing. Marketing's excited too because, man, our hard work is, you know what? I think marketing often lacks that feel good moment, right? Sometimes we're in the lab perpetually improving things, and sales gets that sexy thing, that email that says signed document in their inbox, and they go, yeah, we got it. So to be able to share that, there's a real value for marketing to know, no, what you're doing actually did matter.
At Gong, I think we're very, very good at sharing that credit. I've been to companies that, just like you described, Casey, when a salesperson wins a deal, they put them on a pedestal and everyone applauds and moves on, and everyone else remains anonymous heroes. At Gong, it's very, very often that you see that the first email that a salesperson will send out after winning a deal is a long list of thank yous saying, I could have not have done this alone. Thank you to the marketing ABM program manager who helped me get into this account. Thank you to the SDR who chased after all the influencers and other decision makers I needed to get this deal. Thank you to the legal person who stayed up on a Friday night to help me get through the red lines. Otherwise, we wouldn't have brought this deal across the line. Thank you to the security engineer who helped us get through their security review. And we do that really well and make everyone feel part of the winning team. And that's what great go-to-market teams look like.
You know what? Like, I need to pause on that because I don't know if I've ever heard of that happening, and it feels mature and it feels not what I would, stereotypically think of a sales rep. Um, but like, wow, what a thing. I mean, even to do that, sometimes just a thank you is enough. I mean, oh, you don't need to like pay me or do this or that. Or you can, but even just a simple thank you, it's fantastic.
Our salespeople do this like as publicly as we can internally. Like I will send an email or a Slack message to the entire company or entire go-to-market team. When we win these landmark 7 or 8 figure deals, not for every 20K deal, but for a big deal where it's clearly a huge team effort. There's not a single person who can land an 8-figure deal without like 10 other people helping them. It's just impossible. So why not recognize them? Why not elevate their day? You're still going to get the same commission check. We're not going to take any of that away. But why not give this credit? There's an infinite amount of credit to go around. Why don't you hand some out?
So, and that literally started at the top, right? Like that's a culture you created, or likely created in the company to begin with, but also the two-headed dragon created a culture that made it absolutely a no-brainer that I should send an email out like that, thanking everyone.
100%. And in Gong, we've codified how we operate in our 8 operating principles. And one of those 8 is we win as a team. And that's literally in the 8 operating principles. We win in a team, which means our functions and the teams we manage are important, but our first team is the team that we're part of, whether I'm an executive, so I'm part of the CEO's team, or if I'm in sales leadership, so the sales leadership team is my first team, and et cetera. And if I'm part of the go-to-market team, then everyone around me is part of my team. I can't win alone. You can't. There's a great sentence from our CEO, Amit Bendov. One of his quotes is, we built a product so good that a mediocre go-to-market team could take it to market. And we build a go-to-market team so good that they could take a mediocre product to market. And if you build them both, the sky's the limit. And that's just another way of looking at it.
And then how as that leader, one of the heads of the dragon, how do you build out that courageous team?
Okay, so that's another really, really fun chapter that I just had so much fun interviewing like half a dozen folks who were on my team throughout the years. Folks you've probably seen today on social media, from Chris Orlop to Devin Reed, from Sheena Badani to Vince Chan, Russell Banzoff, and Jonathan Costed, amongst others. And they told me about why they joined the team, what made them want to get up in the morning and do their absolute best work. And here's a few things that we found. So first, I like talking about this idea, and I'll start with a story. So Vince Chan was working on his cousin's Filipino food truck when he got a call from Russell, who was on my team. Russell told him, hey, Vince, we're doing this event in 3 months and we could use another pair of helping hands. This is a part-time gig for 3 months. Can you come help us? And since Vince was working on the food truck, he didn't have much else going on. He said, yeah, I can do that. Russell and Vince knew each other because they both danced in the same hip hop dance company. And Vince came on the team for 3 months and wowed us and did so much more than we ever asked him to do, that after the very successful event where he knocked everything we asked him to do out of the park, Russell came to me and said, we should hire Vince full time and let him manage our social media, because we just had an opening for our first full-time social media manager. If anyone out there knows Gong social media, you know we take our social media very seriously. And I said, let's do it. And without much of a formal interview process, we hired Vince for that role, and he crushed it. And he went on to manage all of our merchandise stores, and he went on to be a big part of our marketing operations team. And we're now 6 years later, he's still a very active part of the Gong marketing team. And that's just one example. I could give you several more of how we got so fortunate to hire someone for their potential over their experience. And they really made a difference by adding fresh perspectives to the team, doing things that they don't know what the best practices are. And that was their blessing. They had to make this stuff up. And that's why we have the coolest merchandise, and we have the coolest social media, and we have the coolest events, because I hire people who haven't done this a million times before. They're not jaded and stale and doing the same thing over and over again. So that's one lesson that I learned in hiring, when possible, for potential over experience. And of course, like anything, you shouldn't take this to the extreme. A good example is if I needed brain surgery, I wouldn't go take someone off the food truck and give them a chance, see how they do. But fortunately, in marketing, the stakes are rarely that high. And for managing social media, you could probably hire someone who's never done it before, but you have reason to believe that they're a fast learner and a quick thinker and original thinker, and they could do something fun. When I hired Devin Reed and Chris Orlob, I gave them their first marketing jobs. They'd been salespeople before that, but they knew our target persona really, really well. And I found it much easier to coach them. They were very fast learners, of course, on how to churn their domain expertise into content that converts leads into buyers. And when I hired Danny Hutto, who had never done events management in tech, I gave him his first job in tech, first as an SDR, and then as Gong's first events manager. I liked his original thinking because he had sold merchandise for rock bands like Panic at the Disco that he toured with around the world. And I wanted to bring some of that show business flair into our business. And he did. And we created some amazing event experiences during this time. So that's one area that I'm very passionate about. And I love giving these people chances and helping them kickstart their career. I'd say that the other thing that's super important that came through as a recurring motif talking to team members over the years is that they felt this combination of psychological safety to experiment and do trial and error and fail in a safe environment. They knew that if they did something crazy by most standards, they could get away with it, and it would be celebrated either way for the courage of doing it. Even if the results were not there, it would be celebrated as a learning. And at the same time, we had process accountability. I didn't make up these terms. If you read Adam Grant's latest book, Think Again, I think it's his latest book. He talks about this extensively, and this is backed by lots of academic research. The best performing teams, and he quotes the top teams from NASA and other organizations where stakes are really high. The combination of psychological safety to be creative and think out of the box, coupled with process accountability, which means we are going after results and we're not just, artists musing and daydreaming. Those two things together create the best work that a team can produce. And that, if you can achieve that, then you can do anything with that team.
How do you balance it, or where the two meet almost feels like a river meeting the ocean because there's salt water and the fresh water? Test everything. It's okay to fail. You're safe, but definitely learn something and definitely make it into a process. You're definitely accountable to something. So where that meets, how do you make those connect?
So I'll start with the end. I'll start with accountability. So that starts with everyone having a clear goal and a manageable number of goals that they feel that they have, that they believe that they have influence over, right? You can't give them a vague target that they don't feel that they have any influence over, because that's not going to guide their decisions and actions. But let's say Vince is managing social media. He might have a goal that says, we started this quarter with 10,000 followers. We want to end the quarter with 13,000 followers. That is your goal. Now he knows that everything he needs to do throughout the day needs to optimize for that goal. And I won't give him 18 goals because then he can't optimize his time for that. I'll give him 1 to 3 goals, which is I found the optimal number of goals. Any more than 3, like you're just shooting in all directions anyway. You're not looking at your goals. But if you have 1 or 2, you wake up every morning thinking, how am I going to forward this goal? So that's the accountability part. You have a number, you need to hit that. If it's content, you have a number of downloads or conversions to MQLs that you need to support. If it's an event, it's could be a dollar amount of pipeline you need to influence or source, or number of attendees to put butts in seats. But you have a clear number so you know what you're striving towards. And then we give you the psychological safety to do all these crazy things that you need to do to make it happen. Here's a fun story for you. You know how most event invites that you get, first, they're very long.
Yeah.
Lots of images and speakers and a million links. And if you found the right link to go RSVP, then you're given a long form to enter all of your details, including, are you a pescatarian or a vegetarian? I just want to sign up for the event. Like, I'm in between meetings. I don't have time for all this right now.
Seriously.
And then marketers get upset that people don't sign up for their events. So Danny, who I already mentioned, who managed events for a while at Gong, came up with a great idea. I said, hey, we don't even have the website up for our next event, but we have the list of people who attended last year. Now, we know that we give them a really good time. What if we just email them text-only email? Like, super simple, coming from a person, not from the events team, from Danny, saying, hey, Casey, we know you attended our event last year. We wanted you to be the first to know that our next event is coming up in 2 months. There's no website up yet, but if you just respond to this email saying, yes, I will register for the event and send you all the details when it's ready. You send out that email. You got 700 registrations, 700 yeses on the first blast. How many marketers get that on their first invite blast? 700 yeses. Just because he made it simple. He made a simple human email without sending you 300 links. There were no links in the email.
How many were sent?
I forget the number. It was a few thousands, obviously, to get 300. But still crazy high conversion rate. Crazy high conversion rate because he started thinking, like, what would I want to receive if I were an invitee? Would I want to fill out a form and go through all the names and everything? No, I just want to hit reply, which I can do with my thumb while driving if I need to. Please don't text while driving. I could do that while I'm eating or in a meeting and just say, yes, we made it easy for them and created a lot more work for Danny because now he had to go and put in all these spreadsheets and put all those registration, but I don't care about us doing the hard work. I want to make it easy for you, the recipient or the person I'm trying to convert.
You know, and the key to that email was it wasn't a no reply email address as a response.
Oh my God.
That.
Are people still sending those out? Seriously?
Probably. If you do, you should scold yourself. Please don't ever do that again. Nobody listens to this show is doing that. Let's put it that way.
There you go. That I can live with.
So we have the goal, we have the target where we're going to, but then we're safe to try things. Now, do I assume that, hey, here's the goal, you try something, it's not working, well, you better pivot because you still need to reach that goal? Or how do we get accountability to the goal?
So depending on everyone's role in the team, we expect them to have a rational explanation, what we call a pre-mortem of why will this work, right? You have to be able to tell the story so you're not surprised by the result. Like, why will this work? Why will it fail? And what can we do to mitigate those failure reasons so we can remove some of them before we try it? And so here's one approach to this. If I want to do an experiment, and I'll talk about how we budget them if you want me to.
Sure, yeah.
If I want to do an experiment, I will do the smallest version of it because that usually means it's faster and cheaper than bigger version of it. I'll do the smallest version, which is less risky, but the smallest version that is indicative of a bigger version's success. So here's an example. If you don't know if advertising on Facebook is going to reach your audience, if you put $50 as an advertising budget, that is small. It's not risky, but it is not indicative of whether your audience is there and going to convert on your ad. It's just way too small. You probably have to put at least $5,000 to understand if that's going to work for you. So that's what I mean by small enough, the smallest that I can get away with, that is still indicative. And of course, there's a little bit of gauging and assumptions involved in that. But before you go put $500,000, let's start with a much smaller experiment so nobody gets fired, nobody loses their entire budget on this experiment. And so if you put $5,000 and it didn't work, for most marketing teams, they can live with that and move on. And next day or next week, try the next $5,000 on LinkedIn or TikTok or X. So that is the idea. Like, explain to me why you think this is going to work. Um, I'll give you a real life story of that. So when Devin Reed came to me 3 times during his 3 years as head of content in Gong, every time with the same idea. He said, "I want to launch a podcast," and I asked him, "Okay, explain to me, why is this going to work? What's going to be our edge? What are we going to do different? Why are people going to tune in?" And the first 2 times he came with the idea, he agreed that he didn't have strong enough conviction, other than everyone is doing a podcast now.
Right.
He didn't have strong enough conviction of what's going to be our unique angle. Why are people going to come to our podcast when they have a million options on Spotify or Apple?
Totally.
And then the third time he came, this was right after we had launched in 2019, when we last talked, Casey, we had launched the revenue intelligence category. And then Devin came to me together with Sheena Badani, who was leading our category creation at the time. And they both said, "Udi, we want to pitch the podcast again." "Yes, we're pitching you a podcast again. We have the idea now. Here's the big idea. This is going to be the revenue intelligence podcast. So it's not going to be about Gong. It's going to be, we're going to interview heavy hitting revenue leaders every week, talking to them about how they're using data to make better decisions and empower their sales team." And I said, "I think you've got a winner. Go launch that podcast." And they did. And in the first year, it got 100,000 listeners. In the second year, it crossed 200,000. And
Yes.
it's still going on today, despite its like third round of hosts, because some people have moved on, of course, and so on. But that is a very, very successful podcast. And I don't think we would have gotten that if we'd launched it earlier without a clear, crisp idea. What is the big idea? Why are people going to tune in? What's our edge? What's our angle? And it was only on the third iteration that they came to me with that idea. And I saw it for what it was. I think that could work. I can see why that will work.
A good leader saying, "Pause, cool idea. Now let's the idea of the pre-mortem. Like, why will this work? But also just the forethought to say, hypothetically speaking, why could this fail? And that doesn't mean it will, but let's make sure we design this to address those things. Get the negative person in the room and hey, beat this thing up. How could this fail? And then we will design things to make sure that we address. I love that. A little bit of planning, right? Sometimes you just want to go in marketing. But if they had launched that pod too soon, man, it would have been like, "Oh, hey, hum, another marketing pod."
It would have killed it. Like, 'cause most podcasts never get traction and then they die. Like, you put in 50 episodes or as much you've got in you, and then you're like, "Okay, nobody's coming anyway. I'll just stop this. Nobody will be any wiser."
Right.
But when you have that crisp idea, then you can package it and you can promote it. And now you have a reason for people to come listen to it.
Man. One question I wanted to just backtrack a little bit to around team, because I feel like this is the chapter. I feel like people should open up this book, Courageous Marketing, and go right to that, right? Go right to that last third. Focus, start.
Well, I hope they read the whole book, Casey.
Well, the whole book I mean, I want to get to some magical things, but like the idea of the people, right? The who, not how. It's the people. And if you have the right team, they're going to pitch you that idea. I love. Do you have a magic trick? Do you have a way to spot the potential over the experience?
Yeah. Again, it's not foolproof, and I've made my share of mistakes. But here's a couple of things that maybe are not as common in interviews, and maybe they should be. So one thing I love seeing, especially on a marketing team, because our environment is changing so fast, and everyone's seeing this in the last 18 months or so, right? AI is absolutely changing and uprooting everything we're used to doing. And we're learning new tools and new methodologies, and new team structures are happening now. So rather than checking with someone if they have 5 years of experience advertising on Twitter, why don't we check when was the last time they learned a new skill and how did they go about it? Because that's going to help them be more adaptable. And we all know that evolution favors the most adaptable, not the strongest. There's some very weak animals. Mosquitoes are not a very strong animal, but they've survived millions of years. I hate it, but they have. And they did that because they were adaptable.
Why are they still around?
Because they're adaptable, Casey. Because they're
Yeah.
adaptable. And so that is something I look for. That's one of the 2 most important things I look for. Number 1 is their ability to self-learn quickly. And so I asked them, Like, which marketers do you follow? What was the last marketing book that you read or podcast that you listened to or newsletter that you received? And if they can't think of any, then that's a red flag, right? If they're not learning anything, if they can't bring themselves to learn, if they don't have that state of mind of I'm a lifelong learner and I have to stay up to date with what's happening in my industry, that's a problem. And you can get specific, like when was the last time you needed to learn a new skill quickly? What did you do to go learn that skill? Tell me your process. And today it's easier than ever. Like even 10 years ago, it was easy. You could just go to YouTube and figure out how to do anything. But now with ChatGPT and all the other tools that we have in our hand, there's absolutely zero excuses to not be learning new skills on a weekly or monthly basis. And the second thing I want to see is their drive and hunger and passion for doing the work. And I have a lot of empathy for people who just need a job and will take anything. And
Yeah.
that's okay. You can even learn to love the job. But if I don't see that passion in your eyes and I don't see the excitement to join the team and do the job, I have little reason to believe that I have the power to instill that in you. There are things that I can coach you on. There are things I cannot. I don't know how to take someone who's jaded and tired and kind of done, but needs to pay the bills. I don't think I know how to get them excited. I don't trust myself enough to get them excited. And so that energy is a deal breaker to me. And if you couple those two things, someone that clearly has the passion and drive, and there's so many ways of showing that, right? If someone came to an interview for, let's say, owning our website, and they came with a list of 25 things that they already found on our website that they want to fix, that impresses me. And if I give a product marketer some homework and they come back with a whole new approach of how they would position a new product that we're coming out with, or a new audience we could address with an email campaign, or a brand new idea for our event strategy. I mean, this stuff should be easy to do, but so few people do it. That shows that you're passionate and interested, and also shows that you actually have some of the skills I'm looking for to get the job done. So that coupled with self-learning, I think that's a winning combination. And I don't know that enough people are interviewing for those qualities.
Yeah. That way over, to your point, that is the potential over the experience right
There you
there.
go.
Absolutely. Man, where do you want people to go? Where do we want to direct people? How can people connect with you? Let's show them the book and how it matches your sweater. Like, let's
I'm thrilled to connect with all our listeners, Casey. But first, before you connect with me, go to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, look up Courageous Marketing, buy the book there.
yeah.
I would love to hear what you think about it. And you can do that on LinkedIn. So if you love it, you can share publicly. If you hate it, start by DMing me maybe. But seriously, I'm happy to connect with you. I would love to hear what you love, what you hated. I just don't want to hear that you were indifferent to the book. So Courageous Marketing, available now everywhere where books are sold. And I'm Udi Ledergor on LinkedIn, and I look forward to connecting with you and hearing what you thought of it.
Man, so good. I'm so glad we were able to reconnect and sit down here, talk today. I thank you so much for coming on here. I feel like I just went through a master class, a CMO master class. You have been so you project larger than life out in the world. You're a great person one-on-one, but like the legacy in the marketing world, I'm so excited. Maybe we'll have you come back and talk evangelism in a future point.
Thank you so much, Casey. I'm always available to come back and chat.
Yeah, oh, man, this is so powerful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And you know what? If you're listening and you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, and I was running out of room. Like, well, if you learned like I did, then first of all, go get the book, and then share this episode with one person. 3,000 be cool, but even one person, like, who needs to hear this? Do you know, is there a fellow marketing leader or someone on your team even that's hiring based on experience and not potential? They're not considering the soft side. Maybe they need a little courage, a little pep in their step. Get them this book. Maybe just buy them a copy of the book, right? Just be a good friend to do that. But with that, Udi, thank you again, sir.
Thank you, Casey.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy cool, very exciting episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.